You know, sometimes you're trying to piece together a story, maybe someone's life, and you hit these roadblocks where the basic facts just don't line up.
Right, like different sources telling completely different tales.
Exactly. What if, say, someone's entire career, decades long, was described as having maybe 2 films, or maybe 7,500?
That's quite a range.
It is. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at the fascinating and honestly pretty baffling career of Jean-Pierre Armand, a French actor. His story really shows how wild information can get online.
Absolutely. So our mission here really is to wade through all this stuff, online databases, forums, biographies, you name it. We want to nail down the actual facts about his career.
And especially focus on that unbelievable film count claim.
Yeah, exactly. We need to make sense of these conflicting numbers and also touch on some really quite surprising biographical details that popped up.
Perfect. So the goal is to pull out the real nuggets of info from places like Wikipedia, IMDb, TMDB, even Blu-ray.com, and give you a much clearer picture of Jean-Pierre Armand. So where do we start? What are the absolute basics we know about him?
Okay, so the sources agree. Jean-Pierre Armand was a French pornographic actor and also a director.
Right, and he used an alias, too.
Yes, Max Pardo. That's
Yeah.
another name he went by. And his birth details, born August 6, 1950, in Marseille, Hérol, France.
August 6, 1950. Okay, so doing the quick math, today being June 30, 2025, that makes him 74 years old.
That's right, 74.
So he had this really long career in adult films. What do we know about how he got started? Was it early on?
It was remarkably early, actually. The sources suggest he got involved with the milieu de l'érotisme, the erotic scene, way back in 1969.
69, wow.
Yeah, apparently by hanging around libertarian circles in Cap d'Agde, and then later he performed in some erotic theaters in Paris.
Okay.
But his actual pornographic acting career seems to have kicked off in 1978. There's a film called Une femme honnête.
Une femme honnête, 1978. Got it.
And he kept working right up until 2005. So that's, well, over 30 years in the business, a really long run.
Over 3 decades, he really saw that industry change. Now, I heard something totally unexpected about his early life. Nothing to do with film.
Oh, yeah, this one's kind of wild. It seems completely unrelated, but Jean-Pierre Armand actually won the Plus Belle Athlète de France contest.
To what now?
The most beautiful athlete of France contest.
Seriously?
Seriously. And not just once, but twice. In 1970 and 1973.
The most beautiful athlete. Okay, that's definitely not what you expect to see on the resume. All right, let's get into the real head scratcher here, the film counts.
Right. This is where it gets really confusing.
Okay, so first up, IMDb. Pretty standard source, right? They list 243 films for him as an actor. Seems like a lot, but okay.
Yeah, 243.
Yeah.
Plausible, maybe.
Yeah.
But then you look at a French biography on the movie database, TMDB, and it makes this just astonishing claim. He says he starred in environ 7,500 films, around 7,500.
Wait, 7,500?
Yep, 7,500.
That can't be right. From 243 to 7,500, that's a massive jump. It sounds physically impossible.
Exactly. But hold on, it gets weirder. Go over to FilmWeb, which is a Polish database.
Okay.
They say he acted in only 2 films.
2.
2. And then Blu-ray.com lists just 11 movies.
So we've got 211, 243, and 7,500.
It's a total mess. The numbers are all over the map.
Okay, let's focus on that 7,500 number for a second. That's the real outlier. How does a number like that even get recorded? It feels like a typo that just stuck.
Well, it's so bizarre that someone actually brought it up on the Wikipedia discussion page for him.
Ah, the talk pages. Always interesting.
Right. A user called Pi31416 decided to actually, do the math.
Okay, what did they figure out?
They calculated 7,500 films over a 35-year career. That breaks down to 213 films per year, every single year.
214 films a year. That's a film every other day for 35 years. I mean,
Bro, it gets even more pointed. Pi31416 worked out that even if you assume he took weekends off, right, he'd still have to shoot a completely different film every single working day.
Every day, a new film.
For 35 years straight. And, people in that discussion pointed out the obvious flaws. Okay, maybe some X-rated scenes or films are shot quickly, maybe in a day.
Maybe some.
But not always. And what about travel, prep time, meeting producers, logistics? You can't just, beam onto a new set every morning.
Yeah, the practicalities just make it seem utterly impossible. So what's the conclusion then? That 7,500 number is just made up.
Pretty much. Pi31416's final word in that discussion was blunt. The 7,500 film figure is a
A
legend.
legend. Okay.
And it really drives home how important it is to just stop and think critically, and maybe
Right.
do some basic math when you see these extraordinary claims. So it sounds way too crazy to be true.
It probably is. That quick calculation really exposed it.
Exactly.
So what about those other numbers then? Like the 2 from FilmWeb or the 11 from Blu-ray.com? Why so low?
Well, that could just be down to how different databases work, right?
Mhm.
Maybe FilmWeb only tracks theatrically released films in Poland, or Blu-ray.com only lists titles available on Blu-ray. Their scope might be much narrower than IMDb's.
Okay, that makes sense. Different criteria, different counts. So we've kind of wrestled with the acting numbers. It really does show how fragmented data can be. But he wasn't just an actor, right? You mentioned directing.
That's right. He also directed, and as another layer, he directed 2 films that we know of.
Mm,
Yumi Anal in 1995
okay.
and Temptin Sheli Negro in 1998, which that title itself, and even back then, obviously has some very problematic connotations tied to, well, troubling cultural stuff.
Right, yeah. That title definitely stands out. Okay. And did he do anything else besides film work? Any other ventures?
There's a mention of a bibliography, actually, a book called Jean-Pierre Armand Cocktail Explosive. Came out in 2003, published by Chima Production. So writing, too.
Interesting. Cocktail explosive. Okay, now, even though the number of films is a mess, do we have any sense of how his work was received, like quality-wise? Any ratings?
Well, Blu-ray.com gives us a small snapshot. It's based on only 11 movies and just 8 ratings, so take it with a grain of salt.
Sure, small sample size.
But based on that, his films have an average rating of 7.1 out of 10. The highest one listed there is Open Nightly from 1980 at 7.3.
And the lowest.
JB1 from 1975 rated 6.9 out of 10. So decent scores within that small selection.
Okay. And just as a sort of meta point, how is someone like him categorized on a huge site like Wikipedia? You mentioned the talk page discussion.
Yeah, it's interesting from a knowledge curation perspective. His article falls under their project Pornography, the Pornography Project.
Right.
And it's assessed as Nebosh, which
Yeah.
basically means a draft or a stub article.
Yeah.
And its importance level is marked as fable, meaning low.
So low importance draft within the Pornography Project. What does that classification tell us, really?
Well, I think it shows how even these massive collaborative platforms like Wikipedia grapple with classifying and sort of verifying information, especially maybe in areas considered niche or sensitive. It's a constant process, right? These platforms are always evolving, being edited, reassessed.
Definitely. It's a living document.
Right.
Okay, so quite a journey through Jean-Pierre Armand's career. From those early days in the erotic scene, the surprising athlete thing,
Yeah, the most beautiful athlete.
all the way to this really perplexing filmography puzzle. It's been, well, a real deep dive.
Absolutely. And I think if we zoom out, the big takeaway here is just how vital it is to cross-reference, to question things,
Yeah.
especially numbers that just seem off the charts.
Like 7,500 films.
Exactly. Like we saw, sometimes just a little bit of critical thinking, even some simple math, can show you when something's likely just a legend. It helps uncover the more plausible reality underneath.
You're absolutely right. And, it leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How do these kinds of legends, these easily debunked exaggerations, get so embedded in some sources in the first place?
Yeah, why do they stick around?
And what does that persistence tell us about the bigger challenge of just verifying any information today, even when the data seems to be out there in the open? Something to definitely think about.